over the course of history, what's worse, tyranny or anarchy? Very hard question to answer because they both can result in horrendous numbers of deaths. But the person who's done the most to at least try to answer this is Matthew White. He calls himself an atrocitologist or a necrometrician. He tries to quantify violence and give us at least some guidance to answering questions that we might otherwise think are unanswerable. And in his great big book of horrible things, looking over 2,500 years of the worst events in human history, he comes down on the side that anarchy is worse. Worse. That if you actually count up the number of deaths, more deaths are attributable to lack of government than tyrannical government. Now, of course, they can both be highly destructive. And the way I think of democracy is that it tries to get the advantages of government without the disadvantages. That is, reducing the deaths from anarchy without shading over into tyranny.
So as you know, we talked about this earlier, you have in your book a chart of the world's worst events from a death perspective. And the winning event was something called the An Lushan Revolt in the 8th century, which killed the equivalent of 429 million people. It's ranked number 1. Number 2 are the Mongol conquests, 278 million. Most people in our educational system know nothing of this history. Do you believe that we don't know this because we never cared about Asia? Is this some artifact that will be fixed? Your book was the first time that I encountered much of this information.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. One of them is that, indeed, there's a kind of myopia. The closer to me, the more distinctions I make. And so events that took place far away or long ago don't register in our consciousness. And the other is that historians have tended, surprisingly, not to really think all that much about human costs of various events. You know, empires rise, empires fall, cities get sacked. And you don't really get a sense in reading history that these were just heartbreaking atrocities. And contrary to the idea that quantification is cold and inhuman and reduces human dignity, I think that a focus on the number of people who get killed in these events actually makes us appreciate a moral dimension that historians who are just concerned with glory and power tend to ignore. I mean, all the figures in history are called the great. They weren't great, doctors or inventors or artists. They killed lots of people, and that's the way history is.
And every one of those is a mother, a child, a funeral, a burial. It's horrific.